Welcome to the Broker to Broker podcast, brought to you by AIM, Association of Independent Mortgage Experts. I'm your host, JP Hussey of the Hussey Team Mortgage Advisors. And today we have the first time we've done two people at the same time. We have Claire Mahoney of, I always get this wrong, it's so simple, Mortgage First Corporation, Vice President. And her husband, Matt Mahoney, who is a local real estate agent, right? I know you guys from Costa Rica, but I'm learning and we're getting to show everyone who you guys are. But thank you for doing this. I know it's crazy out in Oregon, right?
Yeah.
It is.
Like we were just speaking about with the fires and everything going on, the air quality's not good, like you said.
No, it's really bad.
Yeah.
Before we got on, I thought Julian was going to say open a window, and he said open a door to get better sound. And I'm like, no, don't open the window, you know?
No,
But that's crazy. And I know you guys are busy with school. You have how many kids again?
6.
Yeah.
6?
Yeah.
That's crazy because I have 3.
Kindergarten through junior in high school.
Wow. And you guys are doing virtual school, I'm assuming? Kind of?
Hybrid model.
Some are in school and some are hybrid where, online and a little bit of in person. So.
Okay. Yeah, out here in Philly where there's some hybrid stuff, but most public school is all virtual. So my wife's at home right now with only 3 kids. I know it's only 3 kids, but it's crazy.
Still a lot.
I get it.
A lot.
I get it. All right, so let's jump in. Claire, like I said, I know a little bit about you. I know you're vice president. Your father started this company, right? Back in the day?
He technically didn't start it, but he's been there. We opened in 89 and he started in 96. So he's definitely been there quite a while, and he had a business partner at the time, and then she has since retired. And about 7 years ago, I started, and about 2 or 3 years ago, I started taking over it, like co-ownership with him.
Okay. All right, cool. So let's give a little background. So when did you actually, I mean, I guess mortgages has always been in your blood, right? But when did you like officially get into the industry, and how did you start?
Yeah. So it's definitely been something that I heard at the dinner table my whole life. But my dad would never push it on me or my brother to like, hey, this is what you got to do, and you got to take over the family business. There was no talk or pressure like that at all. I first asked my dad about it in 2008 or 9 and was like, hey, what do you think about if I like did what you're doing? And he's like, oh, timing is not, let's like wait this out a little bit, not ideal timing. So let's, put a pin in that and come back to it. So then I brought it up again in 2013, and that was when his partner was retiring. And so he's like, okay, this is probably a good time, and things are starting to indicate that we're like rebounding here, like the market in general. And so that's when I started, and it was always under the assumption of like, if this doesn't work out, like no harm, no foul. Family businesses can work really well together, or they can be really bad. Mm-hmm. So if it doesn't work out either direction, we kind of had an agreement of it wasn't a life sentence or commitment. So, but it's worked really well. And my dad and I are similar enough that we get it and work well together, but we're also different enough that we add different, just good positive things that can come from different personalities, where it's a good combination and a good team. So yeah, 2013 is when I started.
Okay, cool. And what was your capacity when you started? Did you come in just kind of like processing? Like what did you do when you got in?
Yeah, so I was so the company's been around since 89, and most of the employees at that time had been with us 20 plus years. So they had all known me since I was like 9, but they also know, I'm the owner's daughter. So I had a big mission for myself that I did not want anyone to think that I had this handed to me.
Yeah.
So I told my dad, I want the smallest office, I want the crappiest computer, and I don't want anyone to think this was handed to me and that I didn't earn it. So I started out processing, and I also just spent a lot of time shadowing my dad. I'd sit in on appointments and take a billion notes and ask him a million questions. And I started originating by the end of 2013, but it was very much with my dad alongside me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also kind of worked on some things to improve like marketing stuff. Like we didn't have a Facebook page and we didn't have a Yelp listing or any of that kind of stuff. So I tried to do things that improved the company. That wasn't just me trying to pave my own way. I wanted to show everyone that I was in it for the greater good of the business and that I was earning my own way and learning it and not just having it handed to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no doubt. I think it's a really cool dynamic because it's been around so long, right? So probably with you coming in, you brought some of that, like that newer school, right?
Yeah.
To mix with the old school. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been preaching this a lot with a lot of people on these podcasts. Like it can't be just all tech and all like new school, right? It's got to be that mix because some people are starting to see like we're losing some of that personal touch with all this automation, right? So you guys probably have a pretty good mix. It's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect, right?
Right.
But how is you bringing some of this newer tech and a newer energy, maybe a younger energy to the older, the old school? Like, how did that start out? Like, there's got to be some clash there. There's got to be just people trying new things. Like, how did that work out in the beginning?
Yeah, it's definitely, it was an issue then, and it's an issue today.
Right? Yeah.
And it's evolving, and it's something that I kind of just have to constantly reassess and kind of, I guess, adjust expectations sometimes.
Yeah.
There's certain things that I would have loved to have done years ago that I've kind of gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, I have to have a slower pace to aim for that goal, like whatever that is. But just in the last few years, we've already had several people that had been on our staff for 20 plus years that are retiring or just working less than they were. So that's been, now that I'm, several years into it, and I do feel like I've earned my place and everybody sees that I've earned it and that I have some element of say in how the business is run, and they can see that my intentions are good for the growth of the company. I've hired several new people, but yeah, there's definitely a element of new school, old school, and I try really hard to communicate with everyone that the aim is never for it to be this like old versus new.
Right.
We can both of those elements can add really important value to the company. The old school people have made us who we are today and established our reputation locally. That's huge, and I respect that very much, and I value that they are experts in what they do and they've seen it all, and they're really good at what they do and are really great resources for, like, I have this weird scenario that I've never seen before. What would you do? And so that's really valuable, that there's a really good team sense of helping each other, which is awesome. And then the newer people, it's also great that they can be like, hey, I tried this new way to do this, and I think this would help you too. So there's, I've tried to basically make improvements and in processes and tech that I can control, or that I can control on my processing side, that I'm not asking the LOs that have been with us a really long time to do much change. So I don't, I get less pushback that way if it's my responsibility to make it happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's kind of become the way that works for me. And I have kind of short-term goals and long-term goals of what kind of changes we're going to make and see.
Yeah. I think everything you said right there, it was very well said. Being in this company, or really the industry, for only 7 years, and I get the family dynamic. My whole family's insurance.
Yeah.
And my dad, my grandfather, my aunts, my uncles, and I was kind of the first one to kind of break off of that. and I'm kind of hoping to get back into that because that residual income's nice with insurance. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But I really think it's something to be proud of over 7 years of what you said. Like, you feel more like comfortable and confident that they trust you for what you're bringing, and you're not like, oh, it's just given to me. I get that totally. So I think that's really cool, what you've done there. And I've seen it just knowing you with Facebook and meeting you guys. I mean, that's all true and legit, how much work you guys put in. No doubt. That's it. So that's cool. One question I had was, like, what was the first thing that you brought to the table to, like, was it a Facebook page? Was that like the first shocking thing? Like, what is this? Like, to some of the older crowd, I hate saying that, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's accurate. But the Facebook was huge, and introducing DocuSign and
seems
getting
so
everyone
simple,
on board
right?
with that.
But yeah.
Dropbox. I changed our website. Our website was embarrassing 7 years ago. I've changed it a couple times since then, but every time I change it, I think it's improving and getting even better, but it's still, there's pushback. Change is hard. So
new business cards,
new logo,
new photos.
Made everybody get new photos. They were black and white business cards 7 years ago.
Yeah, right.
So
20-year-old photos.
Yeah. So it's been a lot. I mean, especially if I really think back to all the things over 7 years, we've come a long way, and I am proud of that.
Nice. That's awesome. That's good to hear. I'll turn over to Matt real quick, kind of like another viewpoint. Like what have you seen that Claire has done over the past 7 years that I mean, just coming from an outside view, right? Like, sure. I'm sure you've seen, like, wow, that's pretty cool that this has come about so quick. Because listen, 7 years is a long time, but it's really not that long to make those type of changes with people that have been doing the same thing for 20 years, right?
Yeah. I think I can really only speak into the last 3 years or so. And a lot of the changes have happened during that time, and being able to watch how hard she works. And she doesn't just throw things on people. She tests them out first. And if they don't work, she tries something else. Cool. So she's doing a lot of the behind the scenes testing of things before she tries to implement it, making sure it works. And then on top of that, I mean, she's humble, but she's the rainmaker for the office right now. And
cool.
So she does that. She manages. She's a mom of 6.
Yeah.
She's pretty dynamic.
Yeah, that's cool. And Matt, being on the real estate side, right? I mean, I'm sure you deal with other lenders, right? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, it's just going to happen, right? Like, what are you seeing that maybe Claire and her team are doing better out there than other lenders that you've seen? I mean, just being on the broker side, like, we see a lot of new things, but there's some bad stuff out there still that we get blind to do because I feel like we're doing a good job. So, like, what are you seeing that Claire and her company are doing better?
Yeah, there's a lot fewer brokers in our area than it seems like there are nationwide, or even in Portland. We're south of Portland by about 45 minutes. And so just being a broker alone is different.
Okay.
Things that, well, I mean, it's just a broker model. It's a winning model. So that differentiates it a lot. The care for the clients goes beyond what most retail places have. It's obvious that they are working for the client and not for the lender.
Cool.
You know, especially with the volatility in the rates, especially back in like March and April, just how insane that was, having to switch between lenders when programs are going away. Retail couldn't do that. There were plenty of examples of where retail blew up a deal and they had to save it.
We had to save it.
Yeah, you guys had to save it. Yeah, brokers had to save it.
Right.
And so that's added to their reputation around us, especially in my office, because I know just Claire has saved quite a few deals in the last year for brokers in my office, and I don't know, that to me is that's the big thing, is that they'll shop rates for you. They'll make sure that you're in the right program, and then it's not just what upper management says. They're going to do what's best for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. That's well put. I mean, it's fun having a real estate agent on here. You know, I just kind of want to go at them and just rip them. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, go for it.
No, I mean, being like a top-notch, understanding real estate agent, right? Like, and then I'm going to get back to Claire, but what are some things you think lenders beat up real estate agents on too much, or vice versa? Like, where do you see it? I mean, you see all the sides, so you get it, right? I mean,
yeah.
I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but I kind of want to see.
It's a great question. I've been in the Brokers Are Better group since almost it started. And so I get to hear all the.
You get to see it. Yeah.
I get to see all the negative things that are said about people in my industry, or I guess we're all in the same industry, my portion of the industry.
Right.
And a lot of it is spot on. And people get these big eyes at how much the checks are going to be, and they jump into it and work part-time and do a couple deals a year and screw up twice as many. And they just don't understand lending. And I think that is something where brokers have the opportunity to really explain to realtors the broker model and why that's important. And as a realtor, we have a fiduciary responsibility to our client. And the thing, I mean, I can get on a soapbox here.
Do it.
Is that we as realtors have a responsibility to our client, and I can negotiate the best deal. I could save them $30,000 a year on the price, every term that they want. I mean, they can get the tractor that they want with the property. But then if I send them to my buddy over at, Retail R Us, it's going to charge them, a full percentage point higher and twice as much in closing costs. And over the life of the loan, it's going to cost them $60,000. Well, I just screwed them. Mm-hmm. Because this buddy of mine takes me golfing. So I'm putting a relationship over my client, and that's not a good move. I mean, I tell people all the time, like, how much time are you spending on Amazon to save a couple bucks? You do it all the time. Mm-hmm. Why don't you spend a little bit of time researching a mortgage, and a mortgage broker will shop for you. So.
Yeah, that's again, very well put. I think it really comes down to both sides of our industry is really putting the consumer first. I think that's really all it is when you get down to it, because if we're really looking out for the consumer, we're just going to put them in the right position every single time. So that's cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, and when you're talking about complaints of what lenders complain about realtors and what realtors complain about lenders, I think a lot of it boils down to inexperience or like overpromising, where people that, the biggest issues that we have typically with realtors are realtors that don't do a lot of deals, and so they just don't know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And I know there's a whole lot of new people in the mortgage industry too, where we all are new at one point and we all mess up. So, I mean, I've always had the kind of motto of under promise, over deliver. And if I don't know, I'll tell you. I don't know, but I will find out for you. And then I get back to them. And that goes so much further than just talking out the side of your mouth of stuff you just made up or you think is probably right. And then you find out it blows up later. I really think that is the a very common underlying issue with either direction, complaints of realtors or mortgage brokers.
Yeah, I mean, they really do fall line to line. It's really about experience on both sides. And it's very tough to teach it. I mean, you do have to get your hands dirty to figure it out. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a tough one because you have to do it, like you were saying, to get the experience, but those first couple ones just aren't going to be the best. So it's about character in the end. It really is. That's cool.
It is, and humility. I mean, being able to be humble enough in your first few deals or first few years is to go to someone that knows more experience in the mortgage industry or on the real estate side of things, and asking questions and asking across, our roles, like, going to a lender if you're a realtor and saying, hey, can you educate me on this? Why, how does this work? What's APR? Like understanding that, and then the lender being able to ask questions about the contracts and why do you do this and why do you do that? And, new additions to our contract every year that the state puts out. It used to be like 3 pages. Now it's like 12, and being able to just communicate and know that you don't have all the answers. I think that's the biggest thing. Like you said, you're writing checks here. You just can't cash sometimes, and you screw up things, and it's better off to ask first.
Yeah.
This kind of leads to this next question. Then, if you're getting into, let's say you're brand new and you want to get into mortgage or real estate, right? We'll start with Claire. Would you recommend just opening up your own mortgage broker shop, or would you recommend, right, like we're talking about, working with someone with experience? Because we see this a lot in our industry. Everyone's just popping. I was one of them. I had 7 years in the industry, but I opened up my own shop. If I look back, maybe I would have gone and taken a year with someone else, right? But how I got through it. But obviously, you would recommend going and working with someone.
Yeah, I can't imagine being brand new and operating the whole thing. Crazy. So I feel like I had a huge advantage walking into a broker shop that was full of very experienced people that I was comfortable with and knew me and were willing to help me. And I could sit in on their office and ask them a million questions and go through their files and figure things out that if I was new or felt like I was on an island, I would have been on such a slower learning curve. And I already feel like I see so many people like in Brokers Are Better that I'm like, dang, they're like catching on so much faster than I did. Like it took me a few years to really get my feet under me and feel like, okay, I can start running now. So I definitely would recommend starting somewhere where you have solid training and resources. And even if it's just kind of seeing how someone else does it. And even if you decide, okay, well, I like this, but I don't like that, and I would do this differently. I just can't, I don't know how you can, I think the odds are stacked against you if you start out just winging it on your own without that kind of base to go off of.
Yeah. The only good thing is, like, we didn't have a Brokers Are Better group or AIM at the time, when we started. I mean, that is huge. I mean, let's be honest, that's big. If you were starting out, get in the group. I'm not here to pitch it. I don't get paid nothing, right? But get in that group, because that really good. And Matt, you've seen it. I think that's really cool that you're in that group to get an idea of what it's like on this side. Maybe there needs to be a group on the real estate side. There probably is, right?
I mean, there are groups, but I don't think there are any that are. I'm probably pretty unique in my industry about how big of an advocate I am for the broker model. I've told her before that if she was retail, she wouldn't get referrals from me.
Right, makes sense.
I mean, I'm not gonna. I love her, and I like the fact that she gets paid when I get paid too. But I wouldn't send people to her if she was expensive and screwing people over.
Yeah, so. Makes total sense. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's shift, Claire, to where you're at now. So we spoke, I guess, late last week, and you're hiring. I know someone left you guys in a really chaotic time in the industry, right? So you're up to what, 5 processors now? Am I right in saying that?
Yes.
Okay.
We've been open since '89, and forever we only had 2. And like you said, in I think it was May, one of my processors just ghosted us. I walked in Monday morning and her key and a note was on her desk, like, bye, Felicia. So that was a gut check. And because we've been, busier than ever, like we all are. And we had to scramble to keep things moving. So I had been actually listening to another broker podcast. I listened to Nate Davis a few months before that, and how he had talked about how he broke down the processing into smaller, like assembly line kind of thing. And I was like, that is something I would love to do. But again, it was kind of something where I'm like, okay, I would love to work toward that. That would be so big of a change that everyone would freak out in my company that in a busy year like this, it's probably not something I can tackle right away, but I want to work toward that. Well, now I'm down 50% of my processing staff. And so
and your other processor was
new.
Receptionist, new, and processing.
Yes.
So
yeah, so she was less experienced.
Yeah.
Like potential is certainly there, but she didn't have the experience.
Yeah.
So I talked to my dad and was like, okay, this is what I was kind of thinking I would like to work toward, but what do you think about if I did it like right now? Because we're kind of at ground zero anyway. So now might be as good a time as any to just go for it. So he's like, okay, let's try it. So I spent a Sunday breaking down like every step of the processing, the whole thing, every step I could think of, and broke it into 4 categories, and had my existing processor, I put her in one role, and then I hired for the other 3. And which, side note, I used WiseHire, which was super helpful, and I would highly recommend for people that are hiring, because it does a lot of the time-consuming part of writing the ad and pre-screening applicants. It does a DISC test for personality, and so that was a really great resource that helped me save time on just posting it and kind of pre-screening applicants. But yeah, so I broke it into four parts, hired for all of those, and then I had them all come in on a Saturday, and we spent all day just walking through. I mean, and these girls were not experienced. Couple of them had some element of financial experience at a bank doing other things, but really no direct mortgage experience. But so it was definitely, it's been a learning curve, and it's been, I told everyone from the get-go of, okay, this is a brand new process, and I know you guys are all brand new, you don't have a lot of experience, I get that. So there's gonna be growing pains, and I need you all to be flexible, and I need you to all give me as much feedback as you can in terms of what's working, what's not, what I need to tweak. Ishbia has been really inspirational for me in how he reacts and is willing to try things, and if it doesn't work, okay, let's scrap it, let's try something different. So I tried to make sure that everyone knew that was the mindset I had with that of, I don't want you to think that this is the way it is and nothing can change, and if it sucks, it sucks. I wanted everyone to be able to speak into what's working and what can we do better, and let's respond immediately. So then about a month in, one of the girls that I hired I knew was pregnant, but then we found out a month after we started, another one of our processors was pregnant, and so I'm like, okay, well, I need a plan for that. So I just hired a 5th one, and she's mainly for coverage because their maternity leaves are going to be kind of bookended on each other. So really it's like a system built for 4, but I have a 5th just to be ready.
Yeah, so you're really preparing for, I mean, it's got to be tough when you're hiring, and we don't know how long rates are going to be here. We don't know where volume's going to be. I mean, that's the thing in our industry. We have no idea. I've always been the nervous Nelly of hiring, because I'm like, I'll just man through it and, do what we got to do, because I don't want to have to lay someone off or do this or do that. So I think it's really cool. When I asked you the other day, I'm like, you have 5 processors?
Yeah.
I'm like, what are your numbers? And I'm like, wow. I'm like, you're there, but you're hiring, and you're confident you guys are going to keep going up, which is cool. It's so much better to think that way than think, oh, might have to lay someone off if volume's not. I mean, so, and you guys have had 2 processors for how many years? And now you have 5?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So, I mean, so you would recommend that? You got to, I mean, it's the old thing, right? You got to hire before,
Yeah,
and
we've never
been hired too late.
Yeah, and we've never done it that way before, but I think, I mean, I am a big proponent of listening to Barry Habib, and he tells me that we're rates are going to stay low for at least another year, and so I want to be armed and ready to do well during this time, and if and when things change, I think in this model, I can rearrange and maybe condense it to 3, and then put that 4th person in maybe in a different role, maybe in an admin kind of thing, or I back in, 08, when everything was the sky was falling, with our 2 processors, my dad was really big on, like, he did not want to put anyone in dire straits. And so he had to put both of our full-time processors to part-time, so they could get unemployment and they could still hang on. But he was like, I don't want to lay anyone off, and I don't want anyone to be stuck because of what's going on. And so we kind of had to hobble along for a little while, but then we were able to bring them both back to full time. They both stuck with us, and we stayed in the black, and every other broker shop in town, it seemed like, shuttered their doors, and we were one of the few that stayed standing. So that kind of mind, I definitely have that mindset in the back of my mind for when things change, because they will.
Yep.
And I don't want to hire to the point that I'm going to be stuck, but I also don't want us to feel stuck while it's busy. So I want to be able to continue the growth and not just barely be able to breathe and hang on while it's busy.
That's really cool. I mean, this is where I think these smarter, smaller shops really, really win. I mean, just look at retail shops. What happens every November and December and January?
Totally.
They just start cutting. I mean, it's like clockwork every year. We'll see about this year, but but I mean, it's like clockwork. Every year I've been in the industry, like, all right, when are layoffs coming for operations staff? I mean, that sucks, man. That's dealing with people's lives that it's not really a career for them. I mean, you're making careers for people, and you're knowing things are going to change, but how can we keep this unit strong and tight knit for the long haul? That's really cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, and I mean, it's Ishbia does the same thing. I mean, he loads up staff before he has the demand, so that when the demand comes, he doesn't have to worry about training people. And that the model that Claire implemented, that whole Henry Ford assembly line, 3 brand new processors at the time, and they're the busiest they've ever been, and yet there were some hiccups and roadblocks that they had to work through, but they were able to process a lot more files because of that, because each person had to learn a 4th of the system, and they have to become a pro at a 4th of the system. And then you can cross-train over time so that they can do a whole file, but your volume, as it increases, you'll be able to handle it more with fewer people because they're experts in what they do versus a jack of all trades that's kind of like, hey, and in the broker model, you have all these different platforms, all these different lenders you're using. They all require different things. Like, it just makes it easier.
Yeah, processors in the broker model really do a lot, and they have to know a lot of systems. So it helped a ton for us to break it down like that, where everyone was able to become proficient much faster than had they needed to start from square one and learn the whole thing.
Yeah, and it keeps you on your toes too. When you have more things going on and you're learning them, it kind of makes you smarter. It keeps you on your toes instead of just, here's one thing, I can get lazy just doing this. And, it's better that way. It's better to be busy, right?
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Well, I'm always learning. I like that about this industry.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, so that was 30 minutes so far. So we got like 10, 15 minutes left, right?
Okay.
So I want you guys you can both chime in on these, but I always ask 2 questions towards the end, right? First thing is, if you're brand new to the industry, either one, or maybe you're stuck right now or struggling, right? What's one thing you would do? Like, where would you start over or start fresh in this industry? In either one of them.
I first.
Yeah.
I really think leaning into learning from other people in the industry is so huge. The Brokers Are Better page, it has been so beneficial for the growth of my business and for sharpening the other LOs in my office. That's always been something that I learned from my dad, really. Before Brokers Are Better and Facebook groups existed, he was really into, old school people would know this, but the broker outpost, that's what it's called. It was like a forum, like HTML, like website that no one had little images and whatever, but it was like, that was huge for communicating with other brokers, because you can easily feel like you're on an island as a broker, because if you don't have, especially like one-man shops kind of thing, I mean, if you don't have people that you feel like are on your team, that's a really great way to learn from other people that are doing well in other areas that are not your direct competitors, but that you can learn from. So that's always been something he has invested time into, in terms of just, learning new guideline changes, new programs that are offered with different lenders, and what's this lender like, and what are the things that I need to know about how to make things go well, and how do you handle this, or this is how I handled that. So that's always been something that really investing time into learning from other people that have been in this and do things well. I think it's so important, and I think Brokers Are Better, the Brokers Are Better page is a huge, like, easy, obvious way to invest into your business and to your own growth.
Cool.
Definitely. It's similar. Surround yourself with people that can pour into you, that you can learn from, be a sponge. Find a way to differentiate yourself from your competition. As a realtor, we're all doing the same thing. We're all selling houses or land, or if we're on the commercial side doing leases. And how can you differentiate yourself? How can you attract a targeted audience? Be relatable. And I think it's really important, I spoke to it earlier, is understanding the other side of the industry. I understand lending. My degree is in finance, so maybe I should have been a mortgage broker at some point, but I understood finance before, but I've really dove into trying to understand the whole process to it. I'm in vetted VAs, and it's clear, and just learning the VA handbook and all the regulations that go around it and how often it changes, and just knowing that stuff so that you can be a great asset to the consumer, ultimately. Being able to back up the lender, and if you can get knowledgeable about lending as a realtor, you can be an asset to the lender, as opposed to someone working against the lender by making promises that you can't keep, that they can't keep. You make them look bad. That's the last thing you want to do, because you want to be a referral source for each other. And if you make them look good, they're going to want to make you look good too.
Yeah. I see it all the time, where one side just doesn't understand the other person's side, and then there's conflict. People get pissed off at each other. But if we just understood each other's sides, then you get it. Like, oh, all right, this popped up. All right, how can we correct this then quickly? And working as a true team, like, when there's that disconnect in lending and real estate, something always happens, and someone gets upset. It's the whole thing. So it's a true teamwork. So yeah, just that knowledge and experience is key. So that's cool. Awesome. Last question. 3 to 5 years, let's say, where do you see our industries? Where do you see it going? And don't just tell me automation or that, like, where do you really see it to be in 3 to 5 years?
You want to go first?
You can go first. Do you want me to go first?
Sure. Go.
Okay. The industry, the market, more specifically. What are you wanting, just like real estate industry, or just the market in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could go the real estate industry. You can go wherever you want to take it. Where do you see it all?
Yeah. Well, we've been hit with big companies like Zillow, and then when Realtor.com was sold, I mean, those places dominate the web space, and so you almost have to work with them until you're big enough that you don't have to. So I can see them getting bigger. I think there's enough pushback, though, that as realtors, we need to be protecting ourselves too. You guys have your association. I mean, we're associated, but it's nothing. There's no like brotherhood or sisterhood like you have. And so I think something like that should develop. You'd mentioned starting a group. I would love to have a group where there are brokers, mortgage brokers, and realtors together in a forum. And it could be something that AIM maybe starts to try and draw in more realtors to be able to ask questions, to be able to learn. And as that happens, I think that realtors, as time progresses, I think things could be much smoother. Like you said, teamwork between both sides of the industry. But as this market in general has been insane, just saying, sorry. My computer was going nuts.
That's a retail lender. Loans blowing up, dude. I'm telling you.
It's crazy. The market's been insane, and we often are asked, like, or told, I'm going to wait to buy until there's a downturn or until the market drops. And we've had a serious drop once since the Great Depression, unless you're like in an area where the economy is so specific. There's one industry, maybe two industries, where if that industry goes away, obviously your real estate market's going to drop. But on average, there's only been one big drop, sustained drop. There's been a couple little ones, but 1 year, 2 year drops. Right. So try to explain that. And I don't think that we're going to have a big drop from this. I think that it's going to stabilize, but we just have a huge housing shortage. And so I think growth is going to continue for at least another 5 or 6 years. People have to have a place to live.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I agree because, with the big mortgage meltdown, that was all built up on speculation, bad loans. So yes, our economy has, the economy is kind of a weird anomaly right now, but before coronavirus, the economy was in a really solid position, and home values are still in a really solid position. So I know a lot of people are freaking out about like foreclosures and as a result of the forbearance kind of thing. I don't see, I'm sure there will be some of that, but I don't see this like mass wave of that happening, because there's just so much more equity in people's homes, and they got in those homes based on fully underwritten loans. And I just think it's a totally different recipe for how we're here versus what that looked like 15 years ago. So yeah, I think rates are going to stay low in the next year and a half. And I think that even if they go back up, I think we're still going to be in a solid state of growth.
Yeah.
Demand. Yeah. Huge demand.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you guys said. I got nothing to come back on you with that. We're seeing it. Like, I follow Barry too a lot, right? And if you just see the trend, a lot of people are saying what you're saying. Who knows, right? We're not going to put ourselves in the corner here, but I totally agree. And you have to stay positive. If we're thinking negative the whole time, then what's the point, That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think, and we'll end it here, I think you guys one day, Claire, you're a real estate agent, Matt, you're a mortgage broker, and you just see what happens. You just flip it.
We've told our kids that one of them needs to start insurance, so then we can just have like a absolute vertically integrated.
Yeah. Title company.
Yeah.
All of it.
Well, you got enough kids. Maybe one of them will do it.
Yeah.
The odds are good.
Odds are good. Cool. Hey, thank you guys so much. I'll let you guys get back to work. Be safe out there. Stay indoors, right? Don't breathe, whatever. But thank you again, and I hope to see you guys soon.
Thank
you. Take care.
All right. Later, guys.
Bye.